presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore and Bettis family legacy of building the great state of Idaho. By the Friends of Idaho Public Television and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
The thing that I gained from my year without internet was not a gain at all. It was something I let go. I let go an addiction and dependency that I didn't even know was there.
Coming up, a year unplugged leads to a life reconnected. A conversation with writer Esther Emery next on Dialogue. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. How are you listening to me? On TV, online, on the radio? However I'm coming into your life, it's almost certainly through digital technology. Our lives are at once connected and disconnected by this amazing tool. That's because as we learn more about each other, it's often at the expense of becoming more distant from one another and ourselves. My guest today decided her reliance on the internet was controlling and damaging her life. So Esther Emery said goodbye to the web for a whole year. And that year led to a life today that's grounded and connected in a very different way. Emery has chronicled that transformation in her first book called What Falls from the Sky. And here to tell us more is Esther Emery. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's so nice to see you. Let's give a little bit of an introduction to folks watching about you. You are an Idahoan. You grew up in Kendrick, Idaho, and which is near Moscow.
Yes.
You're a graduate of the University of Idaho.
Yes, indeed.
And folks, not only from Kendrick, but nationwide, who are familiar with the Back to the Land movement of the 1970s, will recognize your last name. Because your mother, Carla Emery, was kind of the grand doyenne of the movement and published an amazing compendium, an encyclopedia of country living. So this is something that's in your roots, Idaho, and thinking about ways to live more simply.
Certainly, I didn't follow in my mother's footsteps. That wouldn't be accurate. She was, to me as a teenager, the queen of the hippies, and that's not necessarily a compliment. I felt very complex feelings about my mother's notoriety and also her level of passion for something that seemed to me to be a time that was past, a past generation. She seemed to have no capacity to look forward, so connected to the prior generation. But it really was her passion to record these skills by which people had survived in an agrarian lifestyle just a few generations before, to wash your own clothes, grow your own food, prepare everything from scratch, were skills that her parents had and that she saw disappearing. It was her passion to record them and keep them alive.
A 900-page book. It's really amazing. It covers everything from how to gut a pig to how to have a baby at home.
That's
to
right.
what growing seasons are. And we'll cycle around back to this. But as you say, you didn't necessarily want to follow in your mother's footsteps as a teen and as a young person. You went off to university and then you met your husband there and you ended up in Los Angeles. Both of you worked in the theater industry and you were having these great careers down there. And then, as you describe in your book, kind of a spectacular crash occurred, a real crisis of betrayal in your life that prompted what we're going to talk about today.
That's right. I was trying to juggle career and family and marriage, and I dropped all three balls. So there was a crisis in our marriage, which led to a time of separation and also infidelity. And there was also a problem with my pursuit of sort of an ambitious life. My passion for my career had at one point been a very genuine, positive thing. I was in the theater and I loved it very much. But there was a transition that was hard to trace where I became just chasing after something hard to name, almost a tiger or an invisible enemy. And I lost my direction as an artist at the same time that I lost my direction as a human. So.
Well, the beginning of your book describes your reaction to this infidelity of your husband, and you're speeding in a car. You know, I mean, really, really, really fast, and you're
113 miles an hour, yes.
and you're pulled over. But it's kind of metaphorical, is it not? This speeding for how you felt your life was becoming, and eventually why you wanted to try and see if you could slow it down, and in this case, pull yourself away from first the cell phone and then the internet. So there's a metaphor in there, isn't there, with that speeding car?
Absolutely. And stillness was not a skill that I had. I had no aptitude for stillness. So I wanted to slow down, but I didn't have any skill for taking the gas off or taking my foot off the gas to continue using that metaphor. So for me, I ended up taking a very drastic step, which is not necessarily the wisest choice, but it was an adventure and I don't regret it.
Well, let's talk about that. You and your husband wanted to reclaim your marriage. You moved to Boston, where he had a very nice job, but you had left your job and to a certain extent your identity behind. And you decided at first to give up your cell phone and then to go full bore and to just give up not only being on the internet, but anything associated with it, like credit cards and debit cards. Talk a little bit about why you chose that route to try and take the pedal off the gas.
Sure. Well, it was both my better angel and my worst angel, because I had been shown my entire life by my mother the value of counterculture and the ability to really stand for something and to even work against the sort of pressures of society in order to do what's right, what really matters. So there was definitely an aspect of standing for what's right and being courageous. There was also an aspect of just wild desperation, feeling like I wanted to do something dramatic, I wanted to do something powerful, I wanted to somehow regain control of my life. So I think it was a mix between my better self and my worst self.
And it wasn't easy, right? Because you really had been kind of addicted to being on the internet and posting and telling people about things. I mean, you kind of had the DTs. You went through a little bit of a detox issue, did you not, when you tried to go without it?
Well, certainly, and I would guess that many people would be surprised to discover their own level of addiction to screens. There's an endorphin thing that happens when you have that kind of connection and particularly validation for what you've presented out to the world. So yes, I definitely went through a very classic 30 days or so detox to find my way to even a stillness or health without my screens.
And what were the symptoms of that?
Agitation, irritability, a sense of not being able to concentrate, and it just simply trying to fill the time. I gained a few pounds during that month on cinnamon rolls, trying to replace my cell phone with my cinnamon rolls.
Well, you knew, it sounds like from reading the book, you knew early on that you wanted to write about this, that you wanted to, it was kind of a project almost, something that since you weren't working, you could have as something to do and keep yourself busy. So you were still busy in a way, documenting this new lifestyle of being off the internet.
Well, that certainly was the goal. It didn't turn out very well. Almost immediately, I discovered that I didn't have context for the discoveries that I was making. I certainly could write about what it felt like to use a paper map to get around Boston. That certainly was a significant experience for me. But I didn't have the perspective to know what I was writing it for, which only created another crisis in terms of identity and meaning. I thought, well, now I've got myself into this kind of wild adventure, and I don't even know why. It created almost more of a problem than I had to begin with.
Well, you were writing what you called the unblog.
That's right.
And you were sending those unblogs to a friend who would then post them to the internet. And your sister pointed out to you, hey, maybe this isn't quite a full withdrawal from the internet. And you talked about, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop doing these unblogs. And you did a little TEDx talk about the whole experience of being off the internet for a year, and talked about this moment where you were trying to take your sister's advice. And let's take a listen to that.
I realized at that moment that I couldn't do it. I couldn't cut that last thread that connected me to my online self as it was visible to other people, because I was afraid if somebody didn't know what I was doing, I wasn't sure it was still happening. Whoa.
I love that clip, and I bet a lot of people can identify with that. If nobody knows, if it's not there, then maybe it's not even really happening.
Well, that's surely the biggest lesson from my year without internet, was a question of reality and identity, and without the vehicle of the screens, with or without the vehicle of the screens, if someone doesn't recognize and acknowledge my validity, my worth as a human being, do I still exist? Do I still have value? That was at the 6th month mark, exactly halfway through my experiment, and I had been sending out a blog post essentially once a month. And at the 6th month mark, I stopped doing that and really launched into a deeper version of the same experiment, saying to myself, okay, I want to be someone who exists, no matter whether I have accomplishment, whether I have validity, whether in other people's eyes, whether I have any pats on the back or any articles written about me. I want to have a life that matters anyway. And that really became my mission in the second half of the experiment, and has taught me more than the first half combined.
And talk about some of the things that you did do with your time, with that space. I mean, I know you read 100 books.
I did. Yes, I read 100 books. I started cooking. I started gardening. I became a vegan. I greatly recovered my marriage and my family life. I recovered my faith as a Christian. And I also took a short trip to Nicaragua and found my way around a sort of global perspective on activism and a meaningful life. But each one of those items they all add up to the same question, which is about how do I use my time and who am I as a person that exists and stands alone? And that isn't about being disconnected from other human beings. In fact, there was a lot of opportunity to connect in a deeper, stronger way without the screens. It wasn't the experiment in isolation that at first looked like it might be. If I had been just a little bit weaker, I might have not ever made it out of my home and into those stronger, deeper connections. But I feel like once I got into a place where I could kind of stand tall and do the best I could to be the person I wanted to be, that's when the experiment really started to make sense. And I recovered a lot of things that I had been searching for the whole time.
You mentioned faith, and that you went deeper into your faith. You talk about this in the book. The subtitle of your book is How I Disconnected from the Internet and Reconnected with the God Who Made the Clouds. It's a Christian publisher as well. Do you see this as a Christian-centered book or Christian literature?
Well, it is and it isn't. I think that people who are not Christian are finding it a very comfortable read. And that's partly because I myself, at one point I say that I use the words God and silence almost interchangeably. I suppose that could be a little bit of a challenge to both believers and non-believers. It's definitely a spiritual journey. It's definitely questions about who we are and why we matter and where we come from. Very, very deep questioning that leads you to whatever your spiritual path is. And mine certainly is clearly and definitively Christian. So that's why it has a Christian publisher and it has the word God in the title. But I think that these questions are human questions that really can encompass many different pathways and different types of religious expression or belief.
Talk about the title, What Falls from the Sky. Beautiful cover, by the way.
Thank you so
lovely,
much.
lovely cover. Talk about where that originated from. And I know it relates some to Corinthians, doesn't it?
Sure. Well, it's mostly, first and foremost, about the weather. I found when I had no screens that I turned to windows of a more literal kind. I literally spent time looking out the window. And I had just made a move from California, Southern California, to Boston, and was somewhat stunned by the New England weather anyway, than to not have any screens to disappear into. I found a great deal of solace and also challenge in the weather patterns, the things literally falling from the sky. So I structured the book in 4 pieces for the snow, the rain, the sun, and the fog, which sort of go with the 4 seasons. But also there are descriptive sections for each one talking about what it felt like to really see the snow, feel the natural quiet associated with that, the kind of chaos and destruction of heavy rainfall, the being baked out of your mind by a hot sun, and then the kind of stillness and recovery of the fog in the fall. But it also refers to, the title also refers to the experience of grace and forgiveness, both in Christian terms and also in very human terms. What I discovered about my identity and my value as a human being is that I receive it rather than creating it. I had been working so hard for a decade to run fast on my hamster wheels, get where I was going, be a good person. And in my year without internet, I learned to be grateful that I already am a person with at least the promise of being good. So I learned to receive that as something that falls from the sky.
Beautiful. Well, here you are working away, trying to document some of this and lead a different life. And the universe rewards you in an unexpected way, in a darker way, unfortunately, in that your computer, with all of your writing about this time, was stolen.
Indeed.
I came to that part of the book, I was like, whoa, this is not fair. Life is not fair sometimes.
Well, in a way, it's good fortune because there might not be a second half of the book. I went through, I think, to some extent,
it does give you a dramatic arc.
It does. I'm telling you. I went through a kind of dark night of the soul, perhaps, partly related to the loss of my manuscript, because I had launched the experiment looking for traction in the world, a sense of meaning, and I hadn't quite worked out whether or not that meant a publisher, whether or not that meant a book on shelves. And when my manuscript was lost, and this, of course, I won't spoil the ending, but it turned out to be a very human process for me, and I needed to find compassion for the person who had stolen it. I needed to grow as a person in that experience.
When you completed this experiment, this change, and you went back on the internet, describe what that was like to re-enter the world of social media and emails and...
Sure. I had just experienced so much personal transformation that I hoped I would come back on the internet and be a different person. It couldn't have been further from the truth. It was almost like the rubber band just snapped right back to its old shape. And I think that's relevant for people who are interested in how technology affects our lives or how these patterns of use of technology affect our relationships. So when I came back on the internet, that very day, I forgot to feed my children lunch. That very day, I was deep, in all the emails and messages that had built up over the entire year. And I realized that it was going to be a longer process yet to be able to develop my personal strength and to really live the life I wanted to live.
Well, that brings us to today. It did take, about 7 years from when you started, when you did this in 2009, is that right? And then, or 2016, the very end of 2016, the book was published. And that's in part because a lot did happen. And this year set kind of a groundwork for you to really, for both you and your husband, to change your lives dramatically. You left Boston, you moved back to Idaho, where your husband is also from, and you live on 3 acres up above Roby Creek, which is about 45 minutes away from here, with 3 children. And you lived for more than 3 years in a yurt. I have seen it. I have been there. It is close quarters. But you are living what some would call off the grid, homesteading. This is sounding a lot like, the life that your mother, who you had originally distanced yourself from, was leading or wanting to lead.
Well, it's funny how it came around, because our off-grid life is more an expression of my husband's interests and values than it is particularly of mine. But for both of us, the year without internet was a catalyst for living according to our deepest values. Just this sort of no excuses, do what you actually believe in kind of challenge, which led us both to want to live more simply and to be more producers of our own goods rather than consumers. And for my husband, who is a builder, that meant to move to a place where he could build a timber frame cabin off the grid from the trees on our own property. So that's been another adventure and another opportunity for us to live a connected life in the sense of being connected to each other and to the natural world.
You have the internet where you live, and in fact, you not only have a website and you have a blog, and you are a vlogger, which is a new term that I learned researching you, and that is that you do video blogs, you and your husband, about this homesteading life, Fouchmatic channel. So you're really deep into the internet again, which I find so intriguing, because in a way, in order to have the simple life that you have, the community is actually out there, that helps you and informs you.
Yes,
and how to do this.
It's a funny irony for sure. Many of the people that we connect with in order to have a community around our off-grid lifestyle and our DIY lifestyle are not located very close to us. And so we do use the internet to communicate. And in fact, there's a very vibrant community and interaction of off-grid people on YouTube. I'd say YouTube is the place to go if you're looking for off-grid people, which of course is tremendous irony, because here we are without the power grid, but with cameras and with internet technology. For our family in particular, it is a constant discussion point. We talk about how much internet we have, how much electricity we have, how much we're using these technologies in our lives. But being off the grid creates that necessity. We only have so much electricity.
Solar.
From our solar power, exactly. And so we're considering how best to use the solar power that we have. And it's very natural to live with a kind of awareness that's precisely similar to my year without internet.
So you don't feel as if you're still addicted to the internet?
Well, moment to moment, I can still be. I will still present the case that the rubber band snaps back into its shape, and that's because of how the technology is. I can become as mature and well-developed a person as I want, and the internet is still an addictive technology. But my lifestyle is such that I'm living in a free way, in a happy way, with a balanced interaction with the technology.
You are very busy. I've visited. You have goats, you have chickens, you have 3 children. There's wash to do, there's gardens to pick from, and so you seem like you have a very full life. The couple times I visited, I've been very tired when I came home.
Well, it's a busy time of life because we have fairly young children, but it's a very happy life. We like being able to know that our moments were used, that we're not wasting our time. I think so many people, and ourselves in particular, have a fear of getting to the end of our lives and feeling like we've missed it, or feeling like we haven't used it well. So our off-grid life is definitely a response to that fear. We just live very present each moment with our family and with our natural world around us.
And what's very evident to me from the videos that you do with Nick, your husband, is how close you are. You came through that time that started the book. It seems with bells on. I mean, you have to be so close to live the way that you do anyway.
It's a bit of an extraordinary story. I think not the most common narrative to see a family go through the kind of crisis that we did and then come out with the relationships we have now. I think it has a lot to do with our commitment to being our full selves. When each one of us made a decision to live with integrity, that was also a decision to be honest about who we are, what we want, and what we're capable of. And that's the foundation of a great relationship.
Do you think that you will write about another book about this life that you're leading now, homesteading off the grid?
I certainly hope so. I don't see a great deal of literature that is about kind of the heart of the off-grid movement in this generation, and I think I'd love to start to contribute to that bookshelf.
And cycling back to your mom, I had a smile looking through her book. She had a chapter called Mothering When It Gets Very Cold. I mean, she really covered so many things. Do you find yourself, now that you're living this way, going back to that book, kind of talking to your mom? And might you write about that, because I found that relationship to be the most compelling part of this book, frankly. Yes, it was a year without the internet, but your descriptions of your estrangement from your mom and then coming
reconnection.
and the reconnection, to me, she's passed, were so powerful.
Well, my mother was a force. She was an extraordinary person, and it's her personality that shows through the pages, really. Her gift was vulnerability. She was able to just put her country life out there for people to see. And both the people who wanted a champion of that lifestyle and the people who had never experienced it felt like they were being given a gift, really.
Might you write about your mother?
Well, I hope so at some point. It certainly would be a good story. It's perhaps a task for a little bit more maturity as I get a little bit more into the phase of life that she was in when she wrote her book.
Esther, I note that you mention in your book that you have a practice, you say, of eating mystery. I liked that sentence very much. What are the mysteries still out there that are tantalizing to you, that you want to learn more about?
Well, once we choose to receive our sense of value and identity, every next moment is a mystery. I think that's what I was getting at, and the way I try to live my life, understanding that my next moment will be richer if I receive whatever happens without having to try to create that or control it from my own perspective.
What do you hope people will get from reading your book, watching your TED Talk, or any of the videos that you have online? What's your hope?
Fundamentally, my story is that same word, hope, is a story of hope. I think it's very easy, especially responding to technological innovations, to say that things are the way they are because they have to be. These are necessities. This is just the only way that things can be. I hope that my story suggests to people the possibility of alternatives.
Well, I, for one, will be looking to see what you write next, and also will be showing people a little bit more about your DIY life in an Outdoor Idaho piece. So I look forward to learning more. Thank you so much for taking the time to come down and do this program, Talk to Me and our viewers.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have. You've been listening to author, blogger, and vlogger Esther Emery. To learn more, check out the Dialogue website. Just go to idahoptv.org and click on Dialogue. For Dialogue, I'm Marcia Franklin. Thanks for tuning in. Now go connect with someone.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore and Bettis family legacy of building the great state of Idaho. By the Friends of Idaho Public Television and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Check out our website, become a friend on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter.